Good evening. I'm Councilman Curran Price of the 9th District, and I just want to welcome community members and friends to joining today's virtual presentation. We're partnering with the Department of Transportation and a presentation discussing the traffic circle on 88th Place and McKinley. Let me again just start by acknowledging the hard work of the Department of Transportation, DOT. They have been working tirelessly on this project for many months, and we just appreciate their stick-to-itiveness and their commitment to our community. Throughout the years, the department has demonstrated a sincere willingness and commitment to listen to the community and prioritize their work based on that feedback. And so we do appreciate that very much. Just last year, we installed a new rectangular rapid flash beacon at 87th and Central to help pedestrians safely walk across the street. And last month, we activated a new traffic signal at the intersection of 67th and Broadway. I'd also like to recognize all of our attendees this evening for taking time out of your day to join us and be an active participant in this virtual town hall meeting. I know these are extraordinary times, but there's a lot of work to be done to help our families and our neighbors. And so we appreciate the collaborating with the Department of Transportation to make that possible. It's my honor to co-host this webinar with DOT, and they're going to unveil plans for a much needed and quite frankly, long anticipated traffic circle at the intersection of 88th Place and McKinley. Yes, 88th Place and McKinley in South Los Angeles. By the way, this will be the first traffic signal in CD9. And so we are very, very excited. Time and time again, my office has heard of the congestion and unsafe driving that passes through this intersection on a daily basis, harming residents, children, and seniors. We've listened to your concerns for speed reduction and pedestrian visibility and better safety. And while we're taking the initial steps to address safety concerns that bicyclists and pedestrians who are traveling to Green Meadows or to Merv Avenue High School have had to face for many years. So this is not a new situation. So I'm looking forward to the improvements that are being proposed for this particular intersection, from the traffic circle to a four-way stop to curb improvements and community beautification. It's a win-win-win for the neighbors and citizens in CD9. Now, there is much work still to be done beyond 88th Place and McKinley. And while you listen to today's presentation, I encourage you to use your voice to provide feedback as you see fit. Give us your thoughts, give us your ideas, also certainly what we're doing right and also what we're doing wrong. Your input is important. If you have any questions or like to report unsafe street or traffic conditions, don't hesitate to call my office, the district office on 43rd and Central at 323-846-2651. So again, thanks for joining us this evening, and please share your thoughts and ideas about this exciting project, one that we are very proud of and we hope to implement in the very near future. Thank you.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Thank you very much, Councilmember Price, for that introduction. We're here this evening to talk about improvements coming to McKinley Avenue in the Avalon Gardens and Green Meadows neighborhood. Thanks again to Councilmember Price and to his office for being here today and for his support and partnership in creating safer streets in the 9th District. We really appreciate it. My name is Claire Eberly, and I'm here on behalf of the City of Los Angeles Department of Transportation. My greater team from LADOT is also here. I want to recognize Charlie Ho, who is the engineering project manager, and Fernando Velasco, also an engineer on the team. I'll enlist their help in answering some questions we might hear tonight. There's some other folks here as well to join us in support. As we get started, I do want to invite anyone to add in the chat who you are and where you live, if you would like to do so, such as what street or what part of the neighborhood, so we have an idea about who's here in the virtual room tonight. I also just want to quickly go through on Zoom how to ask questions in the Q&A and chat. And you can email us at ladot.active@lacity.org if you might be joining by phone. We'll be monitoring that and be able to respond to questions that we get live. I also want to make sure that anyone needing Spanish translation has an opportunity to access the Spanish translation channel. And you can do so by using the button at the bottom of the screen. Could I have one of our interpreters make that announcement in Spanish just to make sure it's available? Okay, we'll go ahead and move forward. And I'll note that we'll dedicate time to questions and answers at the end of the presentation, but like I mentioned, please feel free to enter in the chat in the Q&A box. And we will share answers in follow-up and the discussion with everyone by email and follow up to the session this evening. So to provide a brief overview of our agenda for the meeting this evening, here's what we'll be covering. First, what is LADOT? Who are we and what do we do? We'll share the background about McKinley Avenue and 88th Place project. We'll dive into the project elements. We'll talk about why we're thinking about and wanting to improve neighborhood streets in particular. And lastly, we'll talk about how to get involved in planning efforts for safe local streets. And then we'll get to Q&A at the end. But first, we want to quickly mention some of the important resources that LADOT has available and that the city has available. Amidst this really difficult time, LADOT work does continue to make our streets safer and more livable. But we do recognize that it's a very challenging time across our LA communities. And we recognize that it's a lot to ask for your participation here when there's much demanding your attention and resources at this moment. And we appreciate your taking the time to be here with us. And before we start, we want to highlight some of the city resources available to navigate the pandemic. Some of the programs and services provided by LADOT in our adjustments to our own operations and services include free dash bus rides, traffic operations at food pantries, school lunch programs, and meal pickup, special loading zones for essential services, and pickup and delivery zones at restaurants, assistance with senior meal delivery, and speed and reduction improvements. Parking enforcement has resumed, but we do have an economic relief program in place, which you can find more information about on our COVID response page. And I will just quickly drop a link to that in the chat box for accessibility. So we also wanted to share the centralized city website that includes links to many more resources, both city local resources and regional resources. So housing and employment links, resources for tenants and small businesses, places to access food and supplies, and testing. You can find the link here, right here. It's also very easy to find on the city's website. So to talk a little bit more about LADOT, our team is here from the City of Los Angeles Department of Transportation. LADOT's mission is to lead transportation planning, project delivery, and operations in the City of Los Angeles. We work together and collaborate to deliver a safe, livable, and well-run transportation system in the city and in the region. In partnership with other city agencies, we're responsible for managing the city streets, from parking management to safety improvements to traffic signals and stop signs. It's LADOT's vision that in Los Angeles, all people have access to safe and affordable transportation choices that treat everyone with dignity and support vibrant, inclusive communities. Among our work, we wanted to highlight a project that you might be familiar with from the neighborhood, the Avalon Boulevard Safety Project. LADOT worked in close collaboration with Councilmember Price's office on this project. It involved a very exciting and robust community engagement and input process. And we were able to install safety improvements on approximately 6 miles of Avalon Boulevard between Jefferson and 120th Street. The project went into construction over the summer, and this fall we added some finishing touches. We have a new bike lane on Avalon, parking protected bike lane in some segments. Overall, many safety improvements to the street. And this fall we added some finishing touches, including accessible bus platforms. And so far, we've been hearing a lot of positive feedback about Avalon. In 2022, LADOT will be continuing to upgrade the street with more permanent, durable materials to make a fully complete street and really make those safety improvements permanent and durable and attractive. I know some folks in the community have been able to ride it. I myself have seen a lot of people out there already riding in their new bike lanes, and it's exciting. You can visit ladotlivable.streets.org to explore our projects and learn more about our work and programs, including Avalon, and our greater family of programs such as Vision Zero, the Active Transportation Division, Safe Routes to School, Great Streets, and more. And our website, there's the link. Our website is also available and accessible in Spanish. So now to dive into the project we're here to share with you today, intersection safety improvements at McKinley Avenue and 88th Place. LADOT is working to enhance the intersection of McKinley Ave and 88th Place in the Avalon Gardens and Green Meadows area. Our goal today is to share the project background, to provide an update on the current design, to touch base on the project schedule, and then answer questions and respond to feedback at the end of the presentation. The project is in the final design phase, and I'll share more about the project schedule a bit later in the presentation. If you're here today, most likely you know the location very well. I know we have some residents in the group this evening, and thank you so much for joining here and for being here with us. The site was originally selected because it is in a very vibrant place. This is the intersection of two streets that are busy local thoroughfares and connect many local places. They're busy streets that get into and out of the neighborhood. 88th Place is an important pathway to Avalon Boulevard and to the new safety improvements and new bike lane there. McKinley and 88th are both neighborhood streets that provide routes to shops, businesses, and transit stops on Central and on Manchester, to schools and parks such as Damali High School and Green Meadows Rec Center, and down to 92nd Street. LADOT was awarded funding for this intersection improvement project under the State of California's Active Transportation Program in 2015. So the project is fully funded. This intersection was one of 4 throughout the city to be funded together as key intersections on important neighborhood corridors. The Active Transportation Program is a grant funding source created to encourage walking, biking, and other active ways of travel to support more sustainable communities and to improve safety. The state of California specifically awards funding to projects designed to support these goals. Our project is about helping make these streets safer for people using 88th Place, McKinley, the surrounding streets, and accessing streets like Avalon and Manchester nearby. The project aims to make walking, biking, and getting to transit more comfortable and attractive by addressing traffic safety and slowing cars. It can also be a building block for continued future improvements that over time will create a network of safer streets. The improvements are designed with these goals in mind: to slow traffic and encourage drivers to use safe speeds, to improve pedestrian safety and comfort, to improve accessibility with sidewalk repairs and upgrades to access ramps, and overall to make the intersection feel more people-friendly. So why are we talking about neighborhood streets and what makes them important? We make investments as a city, as LADOT, in safety improvements on streets like Avalon to significantly improve safety where traffic is heavy and speeds are high. And elements like those, like on Avalon and other bike lanes and safety improvements, contribute to the goal of improved safety, but those streets aren't necessarily comfortable for everyone. Research suggests that residential streets with limited car traffic and slow moving vehicles can be more appealing, especially for people biking or walking. And they might be more comfortable for families and kids. There are other benefits to improving safety on local streets as well and making them easier to use. Streets with lighter traffic experience less noise and air pollution. People are more likely to know their neighbors on streets with less traffic. And like I said, they're likely to be more attractive to families and kids and help people make local trips, such as to school, to grab groceries, or to get a bite to eat in the neighborhood. So they provide an option. Why was McKinley and 88th Place selected as a priority location for this project? First, it's close to many neighborhood destinations. The intersection is near shops and businesses, schools, and other community assets, places where people are going. The project is about increasing connectivity and supporting people moving around the community, getting in and out of the neighborhood from their homes to those local destinations. Second, it was also identified because of how people are getting around here. There's a high rate of commuters walking, biking, and especially using transit to get to work. And we care about making it safer for these folks. Traffic safety is an issue in the neighborhood. The major streets see a disproportionately high number of traffic collisions, and quite a few are on the Vision Zero High Injury Network, which is the city's network of streets with higher numbers of traffic crashes. We want to improve safety overall in the neighborhood and save lives. Also, these streets create a separate network of slower and safer streets. McKinley runs the whole length of the greater Green Meadows neighborhood, all the way from Gage down to about 108th. It's parallel to Avalon, so it can be an alternative choice. These streets are called out in our city transportation policy as well for prioritized investments. So to get more specifically into the proposed project elements, there's a neighborhood traffic circle, landscaping as part of that circle, crosswalks, curb ramps, wayfinding or signage, and sharrow pavement markings. And here's a conceptual drawing of what they'll look like. So you have the center neighborhood traffic circle, which is a small center island with landscaping, new high visibility crosswalks, upgraded curb ramps that will be brought to ADA standard on all four corners, sidewalk repair near the intersection, sharrows are bicycle route pavement markings on the street that indicate to drivers to share the road, wayfinding signage. So this would be bicycle wayfinding signage that directs people to places or destinations. This shows us the whole picture of everything together. This is a conceptual rendering, but it should be very close to what we see in the final product. So let's talk for a minute about traffic circles and what they're all about. This is what we call a neighborhood traffic circle, or sometimes called a mini traffic circle. It's smaller size than others you might have seen, scaled to fit a neighborhood street. The existing stop signs stay in place, so that's important to note. There are 4 stop signs at this intersection and they will stay in place. And in fact, one of the benefits is that they help improve safety where people may not be stopping at stop signs. We also kind of think of them as an anti-donut device. So they prevent people from driving in donuts in intersections or other sort of reckless driver behavior. How do they work? Everyone travels in the same direction around the center island. People driving must slow down to navigate around the circle. Delivery trucks and large vehicles can still pass through. And because everyone is moving around in the same direction, this reduces crashes and prevents especially T-bone crashes, which can be especially dangerous and generally makes any crashes less severe if they do happen. So the idea is about designing for safer speeds. People can and do sometimes run stop signs. By adding these features, we're forcing drivers to slow down. Everyone becomes more aware of each other, especially of pedestrians and of other vehicles in the area or near the intersection. The crosswalks also greatly enhance the visibility of people walking. And one important thing to note is that to ensure that the design for this intersection would work well, we are maintaining the existing parking spaces that are there, which Councilmember Price's office advocated for, and we know is important to residents to keep the parking spaces available for people that live on the street. So these are a couple examples of what they look like and what some of the features look like. As mentioned, we will be adding accessible curb ramps with yellow detectable warning ramps. So those are the yellow ramps that have a bumpy surface, and they tell people who are visually impaired that they're approaching and entering an intersection. There are also reflective markers around the center island that make the island more visible for cars or for drivers. And easier to spot from a distance, and then also high visibility crosswalks. The city uses drought tolerant plantings. These are some examples of plants that will be included in the design. And as I mentioned, we're also proposing bicycle wayfinding signage and sharrow markings. The sharrow markings create bicycle friendly routes to help improve visibility of and help improve visibility of bikes. So sharrows mean share the road, and they signal to drivers that people on bikes may be present and may also be using the street, and they help create a path to follow. So for example, you might see that symbol and know that if you follow it on McKinley, you could connect to the bicycle lane on 92nd Street, or you might see it as it turns onto 88th Place and know that you can connect over to Avalon Boulevard. So it's what we call a wayfinding tool. And the signage would have destinations on it. What those destinations are flexible, and we'd love to hear from the community, what's important and what would help people get around. So our project schedule at this time, it's important to point out that there is still some time before the project breaks ground and when we actually go into construction. To go over where we've been, the project was originally funded by the grant in 2015. We've been working on engineering and design, and we're in the process of finalizing the design. Construction is anticipated for 2022. And the construction timeline is expected to take potentially several months. It will be led by our partner agency, the Bureau of Engineering, and we'll be in touch with stakeholders between now and then to provide project notification and to continue outreach and education efforts. In the meantime, we want to connect with community members to make sure that the project info is accessible, that we have an opportunity to hear from you to ensure that design will work, and to continue the conversation about how to plan for future improvements. Looking forward, we're noting here that planning should continue after project implementation. And that what that means is this project is, you know, a building block. We have a long way to go in making all of our neighborhood streets safer and making that network that we've talked about. So we want to continue hearing from you what would help make that happen. And we're right now in the community feedback and final design stage. So during the community outreach efforts surrounding Avalon Boulevard, LADOT met with residents and community members to talk about neighborhood street safety at Green Meadows Park. We took a walk on 88th Place and talked about safety needs on local streets. Some of the concerns that we heard at that time were vehicles speeding throughout neighborhood streets, drivers doing donuts in intersections, drivers not stopping at stop signs, need for safer intersections overall, and poor visibility at intersections and stop signs. In this fall, LADOT also circulated a survey to continue collecting additional feedback. We continue to hear a lot of these same concerns echoed, specifically about 88th Place and McKinley. You know, some of those concerns again are about speeding, drivers doing donuts, and generally it would be helpful to slow things down. So the survey is still open. We'd love for you to participate and give us your feedback if you haven't already. You can find it on the project webpage, which we'll drop in the chat box. We also sent postcards with the project information to about 500 or so residents in the project vicinity around the intersection, including Avalon Gardens, and posted signs at the intersection to collect feedback from people passing through and to provide more information about the plans. So I mentioned that improvement planning will continue. This is just one small piece of the puzzle in solving safety issues and continuing to support the investments that we're making on major streets like Avalon and getting people to and from all of our important neighborhood destinations. We want to invite you to continue helping us plan for safer neighborhood streets. LADOT is continuing to work with communities this coming year. You can sign up for updates and join us for activities such as neighborhood surveying, neighborhood walks, and workshops. McKinley Avenue will be a focus street for this work, and your feedback will help us continue to connect improvements up and down McKinley Avenue. You can send an email to us or visit this link for more information about the projects. This work takes time, and especially now will mean going out to look for additional financial support as we enter a really challenging time for the city as far as resources. But this is where we start hearing from you about what the needs are and what should come next. Now we'd like to take your questions and comments. You can put questions in the Q&A window in the chat box, or if you're calling in by phone, send an email right now to ladot.active@lacity.org. And thank you very much. Thanks everyone. Any questions?
Hey Claire, it's Kevin. I don't see any questions submitted yet at this time, but maybe it might be a good time to add some of the web links that you talked about in your presentation in the chat. And I'll let you know if I see anything pop up.
Okay.
Claire, I see.
See, one attendee, Alida Mendez, has raised her hand, so I will allow her to talk, and she can ask her question.
Great, thank you.
Hi,
Hi.
Alida. Go ahead.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for giving this presentation. Thank you for letting us know about what's going on in the community. And I also want to thank you, Councilmember Curran Price, with his great introduction. And thank you for bringing these projects to the Green Meadows community. But my concern that I have about this project is about maintenance. It's always when some improvements come over to the community. It's, you know, especially those that are on the middle of the streets, needs more maintenance because it really gets dirty, plants not being watered, and accumulating up all those trash and debris. You know, they don't look as good as what they are made on the first place. It's always like left and abandoned. How is DOT planning to keep these projects well maintained?
Yeah, thank you very much for that question. We have heard that question, that concern, and it's a great question. We will be partnering with the LA City Agency Streets LA to maintain the plantings in the island. They will be irrigated, so they have a way to be watered on a regular basis. And we will have that maintenance commitment on behalf of the city. So the city will be committed to maintaining it. Going forward, you know, we know that happens sometimes, that things fall into disrepair. So, you know, we want to hear from you how we can best address that and make sure that we stand by that commitment to keep the landscaping well maintained.
All right, next, Sandra Carrillo has raised her hand, so you can go ahead, Sandra.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yeah,
hello.
Hi Sandra.
Hello. Okay, so I have a few questions. I know you guys are just taking one, but why are some residential streets without any post signs? I'm actually currently living on 87th Place in Wadsworth, and in my residential street, we don't even have post signs of the speed limit of what people should be driving. Is that something that maybe in the future you guys might be thinking of adding on, or is there a reason why there isn't? I'm not sure if people are familiar of the speed limit that people should be driving in the residential area.
Yeah, that's a good question. So how do we communicate about what the speed limit is on residential streets? So it's true that there are not signs everywhere for speed limits, and I would definitely invite input from our project engineers on how we or how we could choose or provide the option of additional signage. It's hard to cover all of the territory of all the streets we have, but if we're particularly seeing issues where people are not obeying the speed limit, we might look for a couple different tools that we could use to encourage that by design, as well as potentially posting signs.
Now I have another question. With all the bike lanes added to the neighborhood, what is the city doing to secure the safety of the residents from a hit and run? So for example, I know you guys do have the paint sign, the paint on the street that actually illuminates as the cars drive by. But what about the debris that's on the side? That could be preventable. I mean, I think sometimes the street cleaning doesn't really do a good job. So some of that debris is on the bike lane. And so how would you guys actually, take care of it? I mean, maintain it, just like the first question was, how do you guys prevent, or how do you guys maintain from any of that happening? Because I think some of the reasons why some residential area or folks wouldn't be driving on the bike lane is because of the debris that's on the bike lanes or on the streets.
Yeah, so it sounds like some of your concern is about maintenance of the facilities that we do have, making sure that they're clear of debris. We do work again with our partner agencies, specifically Streets LA, to keep the streets clear and maintained. LADOT does a lot of maintenance of facilities in terms of refreshing the striping and making sure that they're extremely visible. And in a state of good repair. And then as far as, making sure that the street is designed safely to encourage drivers to stay out of the bike lane, right? So drivers shouldn't be traveling in the bike lane. It does happen. We do our best to look on the front end, on the design side, to use the tools we have in terms of paint and elements that can make them as visible as possible. Does that answer your question in part?
It does, yeah.
Okay. I also see a note in the chat box from Genevieve with Councilman Price's office, offering to follow up with you about missing signs and some of the maintenance issues that you might be seeing.
One more. For speed humps, actually, I put in a request for it, and I would.
Sandra, you're breaking up a little bit. I heard the first part.
For this, sorry. Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. I was saying, with all the developments that you guys are doing, it's for the safety of the children. With that being said, I know I had submitted the speed bumps for my actual street, just because there was just so much traffic coming. And again, I mean, I haven't heard anything back from it, but I think that would alone, eliminate the whole speeding from people. And honestly, it happens more than anything with people that live actually in the neighborhood. I see more of these folks, no reason why they should be rushing when honestly they already are in the neighborhood and they live here. So I think speed bumps would be something that would, initially help to minimize all of this speeding.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. That's a great question. Speed humps are definitely an important tool in slowing down neighborhood streets. We do hear that feedback a lot. One, that people would like to see more of them, that there's a sense that they're effective, and we definitely agree. Unfortunately, with the current budgetary crisis, the city lost some of the resources allocated to the speed hump program. So I'm curious about what cycle you might have applied for, if it was this most recent cycle 7, which has been postponed for the time being because of funding. And as I understand, we'll reopen as soon as funding is more certain. if you applied in a previous round and were approved, your location should still go through. And if you were not approved, there may have been some other outline criteria required for the program. But I will also drop in the chat the link to that program for you to follow up directly, or you can reach out to us by email and we can connect you. Sandra, I think you did actually reach out to us by email, and I'm sorry we haven't had a chance to follow up with you, but I'll respond and make sure that you have the resources and answers to your questions more thoroughly.
All right, next person, Anna Silva has raised her hand. So go ahead, Anna.
¿Me escuchan? ¿Me escuchan?
Yeah.
Soy Ana Silva.
Hi, we can hear you.
Buenas tardes. Ok, soy Ana Silva y yo vivo en esta área de aquí cerca donde van a hacer el proyecto. Muchas gracias por el proyecto porque estábamos necesitándolo, pero también tenemos un pequeño problema. Bueno, yo digo pequeño, pero es más grande. En la calle de la Stanford y la 89 hay un stop que lo quitaron y lo hemos solicitado varias veces porque nosotros pertenecemos al área de Green Meadows. Nos reuníamos de vez en cuando no había este problema de la pandemia. Y luego solicitamos varias cositas que necesitábamos en esta área. Y ese stop que tomaron en la 89 y en Stanford nunca lo pusieron, pero ahorita es un lugar donde hay mucho tráfico, demasiada velocidad. Y no sé, me gustaría que ese proyecto que van a hacer aquí en la otra calle de la 88 se pudiera realizar aquí en la Stanford y 89 para reducir la velocidad, y además porque muchos carros hacen lo que le llaman donas en esa esquina y es muy peligroso, y me gustaría o todos los miembros que nosotros nos reuníamos que si se pudiera hacer un proyecto parecido en esta área. ¿Sí me escucha?
Sí, gracias. Un momento.
So Claire, I was listening in on the translation, and her question is, there was a stop sign that used to exist at Stanford and 88th, but was not replaced. And it's next to
89.
Sorry,
El
87th
89,
Street.
el 89 y Stanford.
89th and Stanford.
89th, Stanford and 89th. And it's a location where a lot of members in the community gather. And the stop sign was removed and it was not replaced. And she's wondering if it would be possible to do a project like this at that location. This location is dangerous because there's a lot of speeding and people do donuts at that location.
Great. Well, not great. I'm sorry to hear that. Thank you for bringing that to our attention, Anna, and for asking that question. Regarding the stop sign, we'll have to look into why it was removed and not replaced. I don't have an answer to that, but I would definitely like to follow up on it and find out what happened there. It's possible that we can replace it and we can just put it in a replacement sign. If there was another issue, we may have to, figure out how to address it. If to answer your question regarding if a different or a similar project as this one could be put in there, we can look at what we could do in the short term to address that concern you have and the safety issues. If we wanted to construct a new traffic circle there, it would take us some time to locate the funding for it and to design it, but we can certainly put that on our list of intersections to look at more and to see if there's something that we can do sooner rather than later to address that concern. And I see that Genevieve also reached out to Anna in the chat box with her number for follow-up. So thank you. Thanks, Genevieve, for that.
All right, so we have one more from Elida Mendez. I'll go ahead and let her talk again.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, I just heard about the speed humps, and my question is, if it is about speed, why when we submit speed humps, we have to go through the traffic survey about 1,000 cars passing on the street. If it's not about traffic issue, it's about speed. Hello?
Yeah, hi Alita. So is your question how to apply for the survey or the speed hump?
No, once we get, that's like the second step, getting into the traffic survey is 1,000, that's the amount of car that is supposed to pass by the street in order to qualify to install the speed humps. If it's not a traffic issue, it's about the speed. If we submit a speed humps service request, is because we have problems with people speeding up on the street, not because the amount of traffic that is coming through the street. The question is, why have to be 1,000 cars passing by the street in order to qualify?
So I think the threshold for the number of vehicles is to make sure, I understand what you're asking, which is people can still speed no matter how many cars are on the street, maybe, right? And sometimes the fewer vehicles there are, the more people might be likely to speed. And the requirement is there to make sure that we're reaching the streets that have the most critical needs. So it is, I think, part of a prioritization. So the more the streets that meet that threshold of 1,000 that might have a little bit more traffic, but also are seeing the high speeds, are the ones that we seek to address with the program. I understand. I think your concern is also that there might be streets that fall under that threshold, but unfortunately, based on data, that's how we set it up and where we see the greatest need to be. I don't know if anyone else on my team has additions to that based on familiarity with the speed hump program, but I know that those requirements are based on data and safety analysis and where we want to put the resources most urgently.
So the project on 88th Place in McKinley is not because the traffic amount that is passing by, is just mostly to secure the pedestrians and people using the bicycle, right? That's the main idea.
That's the main idea, right? That's the main idea based on the number of pedestrians and bicycles and where the project is located and the potential for more people to walk and bike and access like transit, metro, and dash stops. But the number of vehicles on the street and the safety concerns and collisions on the street and in the area overall are also factors that led to that location being identified. And I think on McKinley and 88th Place, the number of vehicles is approximately 3,500 per day, 3,500 to 4,000 per day.
I see. Yeah, I'm sorry to take. I also have another question about the pardon, about the sound, about the Avalon improvements, because I've seen that on some spots the bicycles lines it is not safe. I put this question on the chat, but I didn't see if somebody answered it. Why is it that those lines cannot be just go against the sidewalk instead exposing the cyclist on the traffic? Because some spots are against the sidewalk and some of them are on near the traffic. Can be possible to be just one straight line against the sidewalk?
Yeah, that's a great question. So why are they sometimes up against the curb or the sidewalk? Why are the bike lanes sometimes further out on the street? And there are sort of a number of trade-offs and considerations in how a bike lane gets designed. Lauren did put a response, Lauren Ballard, who was the project lead for the Avalon project, did put a response in the Q&A. And she says that the project design for Avalon in particular changes from protected bike lane, which is where it's up against the curb and it's got parking usually outside of it. So therefore a protected bike lane. The Avalon design changes from protected to regular bike lane depending on how narrow the street is. So there's not always enough width overall between each sidewalk to allow the design of a protected bike lane. And in some places, a protected bike lane won't fit without either removing parking. In the case of Avalon, in other cases, sometimes it's a travel lane that gets removed in order to make that fit. So Lauren wanted to know if there are specific intersections or blocks that you can point us to, and we can take a closer look to see if there's anything else we can do to improve safety of the bike lane there.
Yeah, well, it's basically, from it's Lawson all the way to Manchester. That's when on some spot it's like that. But it could be all the way from Lawson to Manchester. It works perfect to be just like the bike line against the sidewalk. There is no obstruction at it. Yeah, but I really thank you for this opportunity, and I would like to ask if it is possible to send you feedback on those future projects that I would like. Cause I know when DOT came over to Green Meadows Park, I was there, and I also suggested to have a special improvement just right there on 89 and Avalon, because many people cross the street there and there is no walk lines, a crosswalk for pedestrians, and many accidents happen there. But they didn't, when they did the improvement, they didn't remark those lines, the Wall Street.
Yes, that's right. I know where you're talking about at 89th, where you cross over to the park.
Yes, yes.
I don't know exactly why that ultimate decision was made, but I know that there's a crosswalk on the next block, or I think one block down. And we try to make sure that we don't put a crosswalk where there's nothing to control vehicles crossing it. And so it may have been that the design team on that project wasn't able to put in, you know, a stop sign or a signal there. And therefore they were concerned about putting a crosswalk without that extra control. But Alita, I will make sure that you're connected with Lauren on the Avalon feedback that you have. And then I'll also make sure, if it's okay, I can just go ahead and add you to the contact list for planning future improvements and make sure that you get that project information.
All right, well, thank you, I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the comments and all you do to support safety in the neighborhood.
So Claire, we just have one last question, and I know we're at 6 o'clock, but Sandra's asking if we can put four-way stop signs in all corners. And that seems to be the last question for tonight.
Great. Thank you, Sandra, for that question. Are you thinking about a specific corner or specific intersection?
No, I'm just thinking of all completely four corners on each and every residential area for around McKinley, 88th Place,
Yeah.
Just around, you know, anywhere that, you know, we can limit the you know, the speed.
Yeah. So there are stop signs on all four corners at 88th Place and at McKinley. We're keeping those stop signs there. I know some, but not all of the other intersections in the neighborhood also have four-way stop signs, but you know, there are, exactly as you mentioned, there are some that have only two-way stop signs. And there are criteria for installing stop signs. You know, there are certain sort of thresholds that have to be met as far as the number of vehicles passing through, the number of people using the intersection, and what the speed and safety data tells us about it. We try to do it, you know, where we can. So if there's a specific location that you have in mind at any time, you know, you can reach out to us or notify the council office, and we can look at it in more detail to see if it meets those criteria.
I will definitely do that. Definitely 87th Place in Wadsworth is definitely one that would be, you know, benefit from all four corners being stops or having stop signs. So I will definitely do that. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Sandra. Thanks for all your questions. It looks like that's it. Any other questions coming in from anyone?
I'm not seeing anything in the Q&A, and no one has raised their hand or in the chat box either.
Okay. Great. Well, with that, we'll wrap up. Thank you so much, everyone who was able to join us this evening. Thank you for the really thoughtful questions and comments. We will follow up with some answers to the questions, as well as the links that we provided about the project. And we look forward to continuing to talk with you about safety improvements in the neighborhood.